Okay, so ready to get a little bit personal. We're going to take a deep dive into a topic that most people don't really talk about at the dinner table, but it's something that a lot of couples, they actually struggle with silently. And that is intimacy challenges when one partner, is maybe more blessed in the size department.
It's true. Yeah, this is definitely one of those things that people tend to like whisper about or joke about, but not really have a serious discussion about.
Exactly, yeah. And when
But
you don't talk about something that's important, then, like you were saying, it can create a lot of shame and frustration.
yeah,
So that's exactly why we're going to tackle it head on in this deep dive.
yes.
And we're going to be drawing some insights from a source that tells a story of a newly married Christian couple. And they are navigating these very waters, They love each other, they're committed to their faith, they want to make their marriage work. But in the bedroom, they are facing some difficulties because of the husband's size. It's really interesting because their story shows just how complicated intimacy can be. You know, we tend to think of intimacy as just the physical act, but it's really not. It's about feeling safe and loved and being able to like communicate openly and honestly with your partner.
Absolutely.
And that's where things get tricky for this couple. You know,
Yeah.
the story really focuses on the woman's experience, and she is feeling a mix of physical pain along with emotional distress. It's like a double whammy.
Right. And it's important to remember that pain during intercourse, there are a lot of factors that could cause it. For some women, it could be vaginismus. I don't know if you've heard of that.
I feel like I've heard of it, but I couldn't really explain what it is.
Yeah, so it's basically a condition where the muscles in the vagina, they involuntarily contract. And that makes intercourse really painful or even impossible. And you know what? A lot of times this is actually triggered by anxiety or fear of pain or maybe even like past trauma. So it's not always just the size itself. It's all the emotional baggage that can kind of get tied up with that as well.
Wow, that's really interesting. I never really thought about it that way, but that makes so much sense. So it sounds like we have to address both the physical side of this issue and the emotional side.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's important to remember that size differences, it can impact men too.
Yeah. Right.
Because a lot of men, they may feel inadequate or
Mhm.
like they may be unsure of how to support their partner. And that can lead to some feelings of rejection and frustration as well for them.
So both partners in this situation are kind of dealing with their own stuff. And it's a lot. Our source material outlines like a three-step solution for couples facing this challenge, and the first one is no surprise communication. But the question is, how do you even start to talk about something this sensitive?
That is the million-dollar question,
Right.
right? Like how do you even bring it up? And I think one way to think about it is you're trying to build a safe space. Like it's a judgment-free zone where both of you can kind of open up, be vulnerable without fear. And the source really emphasizes what they call gentle honesty.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
Gentle honesty.
Gentle honesty. And I think it's a perfect way to put it.
Yeah, it's like being real about your experience, but also being kind and compassionate at the same time.
Yeah.
But that's easier said than done, though, right? I mean, when you're talking about something this personal, how do you even like start? How do you bring it up?
Well, the source actually gives a really good example of how the wife in the story, she approaches this conversation. And she starts by, expressing love and appreciation for her husband, affirming that he is desirable. She's not trying to put him down.
Right. So she's like disarming the situation before it even
Stop.
starts.
Exactly.
That's a good approach.
And she's really trying to set the tone for a conversation that is focused on finding solutions together, not placing blame.
Mm-hmm.
And then she uses I statements to describe her own experience, really focusing on like the physical discomfort, the emotional toll it was taking on her.
Okay, so it's not you're too big, it's I'm experiencing pain.
Exactly.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, shifting that focus from accusation to like a shared experience.
Yeah. Right.
And she also, made sure to reiterate her desire for intimacy. She's reminding him that, hey, I want this to work too. Like, I want us to find a way to make this work for both of us.
So it's about being vulnerable and honest about your own experience, but also reassuring your partner that you are, like, you're in this together. You're trying to find a solution together.
Yes. And what's really interesting is the source actually emphasizes that this conversation, even though it's really difficult to have, it actually brought the couple closer together.
Wow, really?
Yeah. because it really opened up a level of vulnerability and honesty that maybe they hadn't really experienced before.
That's really powerful. It sounds like communication is like the cornerstone of everything else.
Right, it's the foundation.
It's the foundation. But what if you're like doing your best to communicate, but you're still hitting a wall? Is that when professional guidance comes in?
Absolutely, yeah. That's the next step in this three-step solution that they offer. Because sometimes, we need a little extra support, and that's where, a gynecologist or a sex therapist can be so helpful.
Okay, so let's break that down. What can you expect from each of those professionals?
Sure. So a gynecologist, they can examine the woman to rule out any kind of underlying medical conditions that might be contributing to the pain.
Hmm.
And they can also provide advice, on things like using lubrication or maybe even like doing pelvic floor exercises.
So they're really tackling the physical side of things.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then, the sex therapists, they're more focused on the emotional and the relational aspects of it.
Mhm.
So, they can help couples develop communication skills, maybe explore different forms of intimacy, or they can help work through anxieties and fears that might be getting in the way of, a fulfilling sexual relationship.
So it's like having like a coach in your corner to help you navigate the complexities of intimacy, right?
Exactly. Exactly. That's a great way to put it. They can provide tools and techniques, offer a neutral perspective, and really help kind of facilitate those difficult conversations.
It sounds like professional guidance can really be a game changer for some people.
Oh, absolutely can. And remember, seeking help is a sign of strength. It's not a sign of weakness.
Right.
It actually shows that you're committed to working on your relationship. You're committed to finding solutions together. You're not just throwing your hands up and saying, forget this.
Yeah. Well said. So we've covered communication, we've covered professional guidance. What's the third step in this solution?
It's taking it slow. And I'm not just talking about like the physical intimacy. It's about slowing down the entire process of rebuilding intimacy, both emotionally and physically.
That sounds really crucial.
It is. And, the source material uses a great analogy. They talk about taking baby steps, right? You're not rushing into anything. You're not trying to force a solution.
So what does that look like in practice? What are some of those baby steps?
Well, they suggest focusing on what are called non-penetrative activities. So it's a way to reconnect, like physically and emotionally,
Right.
without the pressure of actual intercourse.
Okay, that makes sense. But what exactly does that entail? I mean, it's easy to say non-penetrative activities, but what are some actual examples? And how do you even bring that up with your partner?
Those are great questions. And we're going to dive deeper into those specific baby steps and give you some actual takeaways after a quick break.
That's right. We'll be back in just a bit. Stay with us. So we were talking about taking things slow when it comes to these intimacy challenges.
Yeah, and we left off talking about non-penetrative activities as a way to rebuild intimacy without having the pressure of intercourse.
Right, yeah. I get that taking it slow is important, but like when I hear non-penetrative activities, my mind just goes blank. Like what are we even talking about here?
Yeah, well, it's basically like exploring different ways to be intimate without penetration.
Yeah.
So think sensual massage or cuddling, kissing, or even just like spending time talking and connecting on an emotional level.
Yeah. Okay, so it's kind of like broadening your definition of intimacy, going beyond just the act of intercourse.
Exactly, yeah. And the source actually mentions a few specific activities that this couple found really helpful. Like they started with really simple things, just holding hands more often, giving each other back rubs, taking baths together.
Okay, yeah. Those are great starting points. I mean, they're accessible and kind of romantic even.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's rediscovering that joy of touch and connection
Mhm.
in a way that feels safe and comfortable for both partners.
Right.
And then as they became more comfortable, they gradually incorporated other activities like mutual masturbation, oral sex.
So finding what feels good for both of you
Yeah.
and exploring different ways to give and receive pleasure.
Exactly, yeah. And that's, again, where that communication piece is so important, right? Because you have to be able to talk about, like, what you enjoy, what you're not comfortable with, and what you would like to try.
Right, yeah. And speaking of trying new things, the source also mentions lube. But I mean, let's be honest, that can be kind of a taboo topic.
It really shouldn't be.
Yeah.
I mean, lube is a fantastic tool for enhancing comfort and pleasure. And it can be a game changer for couples who are facing these like size compatibility issues.
Okay, so what are the benefits of using lube in this context?
Well, for the woman, lube can help reduce friction. So it can make penetration more comfortable, even if there is a size difference. And for the man, it can actually help him feel more confident, less worried about like causing his partner discomfort.
So it's sort of taking the pressure off both
It
partners and
rests,
making things more enjoyable.
making intimacy more enjoyable for everyone.
Yeah. Are there different types of lube? Because like walking down the aisle at the drugstore, it's kind of overwhelming.
There are. And this is where, again, like a gynecologist can be really helpful because they can actually recommend specific types of lube depending on your individual needs.
Mm.
But generally speaking, you've got water-based, silicone-based, and oil-based lubes. Water-based is the most common. It's safe to use with condoms. Silicone-based lasts longer, good for sensitive skin. Oil-based, you got to be careful because it can degrade latex condoms.
Good to know. So, communication, professional guidance, taking it slow, and lube. Sounds like we've covered a lot of ground here. I am curious, though, how does faith play into all of this? Our source mentioned that this couple is devoutly Christian. So I'm wondering, like, how do their beliefs influence their approach to intimacy?
Yeah, that's a really important question because, for a lot of couples who share a strong faith, intimacy is viewed as like the sacred act within the context of marriage, right?
Right.
And that can add another layer of complexity to this whole thing.
Yeah.
Well, some couples might feel like hesitant to discuss these issues with like a therapist
Yeah.
or to seek guidance outside of their religious community. Maybe
Yep.
there's a fear of judgment, or maybe they feel like, hey, we should be able to handle this on our own.
Yeah, they might worry about going against religious teachings, maybe, or disapproval from their community.
Exactly, yeah. But here's the thing. Seeking help is not a sign of failure.
Yeah.
It's not a lack of faith.
Right.
In fact, a lot of religious communities are becoming more open to the idea of like seeking professional help for relationship challenges.
Yeah.
They're realizing that it's okay to ask for help.
So it's about finding a balance between, like, honoring your faith and also taking care of your relationship.
Exactly, yeah. And remember, there are therapists who specialize in working with couples from specific religious backgrounds. So you can find a therapist who understands and respects your faith,
Yeah.
but can also provide those tools and strategies that you need to navigate these challenges.
It's about finding that right support system. Yeah, one that aligns with your values and your beliefs. And it's interesting to think about how, like, their faith might actually be a source of strength for them in this journey.
Absolutely, yeah.
Mhm.
Their faith can provide like a framework for forgiveness, grace, unconditional love, which are all so essential for healing and growth in a relationship.
And the source actually mentions that this couple found solace and guidance in their shared faith. Like, they turned to their pastor for counseling and found comfort in prayer and scripture.
That's beautiful. It just shows how faith can be such a powerful source of support during these like really challenging times.
Mm.
And it reminds us that intimacy, it's about more than just the physical act. It's about that spiritual connection, those shared values, and that deeper sense of purpose.
And isn't that what we're all searching for in our relationships? Like that sense of connection, purpose, and joy?
Absolutely. And the source mentions that this couple, they eventually did find a way to navigate their challenges and they actually experienced true joy and fulfillment in their marriage.
That's so inspiring. It really gives me hope that even when things feel really difficult, there's always a path toward healing and happiness.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's the message I really want to leave everyone with today. Whether you're facing these size compatibility issues or any other challenge in your relationship, remember that you are not alone. There's help available, there are solutions to be found, and there is hope for a brighter future.
Well said. And on that note, we are going to take a quick break, but when we come back, we'll wrap up our deep dive with some final thoughts and some actionable takeaways for building a joyful and fulfilling relationship. So stick around. All right, so you've been with us on this deep dive into a topic that's pretty intimate, to say the least.
Right.
But hey, sometimes those things we don't really want to talk about are the things that need our attention the most.
Absolutely. And I hope that through this conversation, you're walking away feeling more informed and more empowered, no matter what kind of challenges you might be facing in your own relationship.
That's definitely the goal. So we've covered a lot. We talked about communication, professional guidance, taking it slow, and we even addressed the whole lewd taboo.
We did. We went there.
We did.
Yeah. And, through all of that, I think we keep coming back to this idea that intimacy, it's not just physical.
Right. It's about so much more than that. It's about emotional connection, vulnerability, trust, those shared experiences. And I think all of those things really build a foundation for a strong relationship.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's much stronger than just, a physical act.
Right,
And
exactly.
I think that's where that phrase from our source material comes in, about finding joy and fulfillment together.
Right.
And it makes me wonder, like, what does that look like for you? What does that look like in your own relationship or the kind of relationship that you want to have? What does real joy and fulfillment in a partnership mean to you?
It's a great question, and I don't think there's just one answer. It's going to be different for everybody.
Absolutely.
There's no one size fits all when it comes to intimacy or relationships in general.
Right. And so much of it comes down to like being honest with yourself, being honest with your partner about what you need and what you desire, and being willing to have those open and sometimes challenging conversations about your expectations, boundaries,
Yeah.
and what brings you both pleasure.
Yeah, I mean, that's where that gentle honesty comes back,
I
right?
feel you.
It's not just about that first conversation where you might bring up a challenge or, something about size. It's about making that a part of your communication with your partner, like all the time.
Right. Because it's a journey. Intimacy is a journey, not a destination.
Mm.
It's about constantly learning, growing, and adapting to each other's needs over time.
And embracing the imperfections. I mean, no relationship is perfect, you
Yeah.
know? There are going to be bumps in the road, there are going to be challenges to overcome.
But those challenges, they can actually make the relationship even stronger.
Right.
It's all about how you face those challenges, together.
Yeah, how you face them together. And that's what we learned from the couple in the source material. They hit a roadblock, but they didn't give up. They tackled it head on. They sought out guidance, and in the end, they found something that worked for them.
And they found joy,
Yeah.
and I think that's really the key takeaway here. These challenges, even the ones that feel impossible to deal with, they don't have to be the end of the story.
Mhm.
There is always hope for healing, for growth, and for finding that deeper connection with your partner.
You've been listening to The Deep Dive, and we hope this exploration of intimacy and size compatibility has given you some new insights and maybe even sparked some important conversations in your own life.
And remember, you are not alone on this journey. There are resources available, there are professionals who can help guide you, and there's a whole community of people out there who understand exactly what you're going through.
So be kind to yourself, be kind to your partner, and keep diving deep into those beautiful complexities of love and relationships.
Yes.
Until next time.